Namaste, hello, welcome. Good evening. Welcome to the 11th episode of Bharat Awakens. We started in the depths of the COVID pandemic with a series titled India Rising, seeking to point out the hopeful positives of India at a time when empathy for India was at an all-time low. With the emphatic reopening of the Ram Mandir at Ayodhya, we changed the title to Bharat Awakens as befits Bharat's accelerating in confidence and global recognition. So Bharat is now one of the key players on the global stage. It's the fastest growing economy that could be the substitute for China in the near future, right? Though Bharat's capital, Delhi, may give a tough competition to China with respect to its cultural heritage, technology, whatever, and there is a big but here, because it still has ways to go before it truly gives an appearance of the capital of a shining, rising, and awakened Bharat. So let's discuss today. We have an esteemed panel, and we have a new member, Dr. Mona Chabra Anand. Welcome, Dr. Mona. Dr. Mona is currently Director, Research and Knowledge Management. She's trained as an architect and development planner. She has been involved in policy development and the practice of safe and sustainable habitat development. She has leveraged research and knowledge-based initiatives to inform policy decisions, mainly within South Asia. Hello and welcome, Dr. Mona. And then we have Dr. Nivedita Haran, retired as the Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Home Affairs, Government of Kerala, India. She has served extensively in various capacities with the Government of Kerala as well as the Government of India. And she was also the Civil Affairs Officer for the UN Peacekeeping Mission in Kosovo for 5 years. Hello and welcome again, Dr. Nivedita. And we have Narayanan Komarath. Professor Narayanan Komarath, he's a retired professor of aerospace engineering. He writes books and works to develop advanced concepts. And he is also one of the pillars of our Bharat Awakens program. And then we have Arun Viswakarma. He is residing in San Francisco Bay Area. He's an entrepreneur. He is a polymath with specific interest in engineering, technology, aviation, geopolitics, philosophy, and religion. You would have seen him earlier in the Chandrayaan episode. So Dr. Nivedita and Professor Narayan Komarath, they are, of course, veterans in our series, but Dr. Mona is a new addition and a very welcome addition. So a very warm welcome to all of you here in the 11th episode of Bharat Awakens, which is about Delhi, a city with a future or a failed capital. So I would request Dr. Narayanan to say something more and give some more introduction around this topic on Delhi.
So, thanks, Anjali and friends. So I'm not a resident of Delhi. I've been there very, very seldom. And so I'm going to read out what I know about it is perhaps suspiciously like what you see on Wikipedia. The National Capital Region, or NCR of India, has 46 million people, what is that, 4.6 crores, in over 55,000 square kilometers, 63% of it urbanized, with cities Delhi, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, Gurugram, Noida. The NCR has parts of the states of Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Rajasthan, besides the Union Territory of Delhi and the National Capital Territory, which is the NCT. The extended urban agglomeration within the NCR boasted a 2016 GDP purchasing price parity of over 370 billion US dollars, but the new district of Haryana within the NCR is or was until recently rated as the least developed of India's 739 districts. The NCT has its own elected government, chief minister, and cabinet. Inside this is the actual city of New Delhi with its own mayor. I hope that's all very clear to you, but I am confused. Whom do you call? If the street light bulb burns up, who removes the garbage, cleans the street? And now, if you look on Twitter, opinion is very diverse on this. Some people believe that the home minister is responsible for the streets not being cleaned. I don't know. I think we'll wait for Dr. Nivedita Haran's views on this. Enough numbers. Delhi is a city of contrasts. The ancient mazes and narrow lanes of old Delhi versus the gleaming towers, the grand boulevards, the serene memorial parks, and the sheer power of New Delhi, capital of the world's largest democracy, 900 million voters, $4 trillion economy, congested traffic, an annual dense toxic fog in winter, very humid and hot summers aggravated by the urban heat island effect. It's not considered a safe place or a clean place. Unfortunately, urban services are not rated high by residents. Air quality is toxic. No two ways about it. Air quality is toxic. Many people advise against trying to go anywhere after dark because of crime statistics. The airport is grand. The Delhi metro appears to be clean and well maintained, and you get some really unique benefits. A recent video shows the Honorable Finance Minister herself, pensive and looking tired after a hard day's work in Parliament, humbly strap hanging in a metro train. They don't even give her a seat. And a gracious smile. I suppose that's democracy. A gracious smile as ordinary citizens tap her on the shoulder and say, "Hey, good job. I'm a great fan of yours." A new government has taken power in the NCT. It has a powerful majority. No excuses. It is politically aligned with India's ruling National Democratic Alliance. The Chief Minister and Mayor of Delhi are both women. The time is now. The opportunity for improvement could not be better. What is Delhi's future?
Yes, the time is now and the opportunity for improvement could not be better. Let me ask Nivedita that as a resident of the National Capital Region of Delhi, what is your take?
Thanks, Anjali. Thank you. After having lived in Lutyens, Delhi for many years, I have now become a resident post-retirement of the NCR of Delhi, as Professor Narayanan just very succinctly explained. Delhi has grown by leaps and bounds. I think I cannot but mention a bit about the past history of Delhi. It has a history spanning over millennia. It was supposed to be Indraprastha. Delhi is the location of Indraprastha where the Pandavas had their capital. It has passed through many rulers, the Mauryas, the Chauhans, and many others, until it was conquered by the Mughals, deposing the Delhi Sultanate. And finally, in the 19th century, Delhi came under the British rule. So that's very briefly been the history of Delhi. The capital shifted from Calcutta, now Kolkata, to Delhi in 1911. The planning, design, construction, etc. over the next 20 years was done by two architects who are well known in Delhi circles. Any architect would have studied them, Edward Lutyens and Herbert Baker, two British architects. And that is how the North and South blocks, the Rashtrapati Bhavan, all these iconic buildings in the central part of Delhi have come up. And the much discussed bungalows in Delhi, which even now are much coveted by officials and politicians. So even pre-independence, Delhi was always the hotbed of the freedom movement. And it was important because as in the regions, the little movements happened in Calcutta, in Amritsar, in Mumbai, in Bombay, in distant Madras. It all converged in Delhi, which was the seat of the central administration. Then came the partition, which had and a very, very strong impact on Delhi for various reasons. We cannot go into that now. So the arrival of the refugees, the collapsing of the economy, the social fabric going helter-skelter. So it all had to be brought together. And Delhi became suddenly a cauldron of very, very mixed cultures, cuisine, language, interests, professions. That is what Delhi now is. What Delhi really needs is a committed and professional administrative system whose epicenter is the common people. And I think I'll talk on that more a little later. I spent 5 years as director and then joint secretary in the Ministry of Urban Affairs, and I was handling Delhi. And I worked with visionaries like Prime Minister Vajpayee, Mr. Jagmohan, Mr. Jethmalani, and they all were extremely conscious of the fact that Delhi needs to be a world-class capital. And we don't need to emulate London and New York or Washington, D.C., but we need to be a world-class capital which will stand out. And I want to mention here that Mr. Jagmohan, who used to love Delhi with his heart and soul, he always used to say that he wanted to see Delhi as a shining example of a country's capital and a country like India. And I think Mona will have to say a lot on this.
Yeah, sure. Mona, we are talking about Delhi being a shining capital, world-class capital. And Mona, you are also a resident of Delhi. You, of course, know about the impact of Delhi post-partition. So let's hear from you.
Thanks, Anjali, and thank you, Dr. Nivedita. That was a very stimulating narration of how far we've traveled as a city. I am sort of wondering about the use of the word capital here. My worldview is shaped by my experiences as a development planner and a disaster management person. And in my world, the word capital, yes, of course, there are administrative capitals, but then the word capital has a much more profound and deeper connotation also, which is around assets, right? So for a city, my submission would be that we should also start looking at, what are the assets, the capitals that are available to a city as an organism to thrive. To give you an example, when we're talking of capitals, typically we look at human capital, the people that live in that city, how they use, abuse, and develop the city. The natural capital, the trees, the mangroves in some cities in the south, the sand dunes that sort of surround cities in Rajasthan, all of these things, the water bodies, what we are now increasingly recognizing as blue and green infrastructure. That is the natural capital that's available to a city and its dwellers to thrive. Then, of course, there's the physical capital, which is the infrastructure, the IT systems, the telecommunication systems, the power installations, the schools, the hospitals that we have. These critical infrastructure, the roads, the airports, they are also, our assets to get the city moving and city dwellers to develop themselves. And of course, there's financial capital that we are all running after in the city, which is why other people are attracted from the smaller towns to come to big cities. The biggest one is the social capital, in my view. And that is where the big distinction between, why do village models do better, or rural development-based models of development? Why do we have bigger successes there as compared to urban areas? Because social capital is consolidated, it expands, it is, intentionally enhanced. And that's what makes a difference. When people come together to own a city, to work in the interest of the city as an ecosystem for themselves, I think that's a big point of distinction. And that is probably where Delhi needs to sharpen its focus and its efforts to get our act together. I think I'll pause there and we can come back to this later. Thank you.
So Arun, you are currently living in a kind of world-class capital, which is the Silicon Valley, the IT hub of the United States and the entire world. Let's hear your views. What is your take on this?
Sure. When I look at Delhi, I'm looking more from a historical perspective. So my father was in military, and so we have traveled all across Bharat. And then my last posting of my father was in Ghaziabad, which is now in NCR. So that was in 1979, almost 45 years ago. And so looking around Delhi, and then relating it to how Delhi was. So when I go to Delhi at that time, it is very, very different from what it is today, 45 years ago. And then when I recount this with my father, he first came to Delhi as part of his Air Force tenure in 1955. And then he tells, this is where I used to live. He used to live in Brar Square, which is Delhi cantonment. And Brar Square, he was saying it was all jungly ilaka. And then, 30 years later, first visited Delhi, then IIT Delhi and JNU was jungly ilaka. Now that I have a piece of plot in west of Delhi airport in a Juggi Jhopdi, unauthorized colony, I say this is a concrete jungle. It's no more a jungly ilaka. What has happened, of course, is that there's a whole variegatedness of how Delhi has grown, and it has its own texture and morphology. So, back in 1980s, Trans Yamuna was, Shahadra and Seelampur, and those are considered one category of people, one category of expertise and capability, compared to Central District, which is really the Lutean or the administrative government seat. And then the main Delhi was really Karol Bagh and those areas. And of course, South Delhi is where the posh area was. And of course, I married a Delhi girl, so now it is my sasural. So knowing Kalkaji, for example, and then having some relatives who are living in unauthorized colonies that are waiting to be regularized. So I have a kind of a spectrum of view of what it is today, how it was yesterday, what could have been done differently, and what we can do better or differently for the greater NCR. That's the way I'm looking at. And the Delhi of 30 years ago is like 5 times bigger than what it was today. There are lots of positives, and then there are negatives that need to be worked on. Chronic water shortage. It has always been there, and now it is worse. Though it is in a Ganga Yamuna belt, the water level should be good enough, right? Then, because of the high density and unplanned thing, there's a lot of unhealthy open water drainage issue. Much of Delhi, I would say, is not built as per plan. So while in posh area, like in my in-laws' place, everything is hunky-dory, but that's not the same for the rest of the Delhi Vasis. Pollution is a big thing. And more importantly, I think crime and extortion, we cannot hide away. So another thing is, hopefully, as Dr. Mona said, it is not just about a land, but the capital. The capital is the human capital. And being the capital of Bharat, it needs to have fair representation and even-handedness. So, and some things that really give me a jarring experience is you can clearly see areas that are fully filled by foreigners, Bangladeshis. So that's another dark aspect of the Delhi. So my only thought is that now we have a double-engine Sarkar, and we have got good, powerful leaders in UP, Haryana, etc. I think we should look at National Capital Region as a great opportunity to do things right first time. There are still lots of greenfield developments that are coming up, because once the area is built up, it is impossible or very, very hard to rework the plumbing and do the streets and other, build a new culture, a social center rather than everybody living in their own cell. That's my 2 cents about it, and I take really as a great opportunity that is in front of us to do stuff correctly.
You have touched upon some key points, which a lot of people complain about: the open water drainage system, the chronic water shortage, air pollution, crime and extortion. And we'll discuss these points a little more. But before we do that, I want to hear from Professor Narayanan. You are a resident of deep South Kerala, which is also called God's own country. So as a resident of this God's own country, what is your take? I mean, Delhi, of course, does not have those kind of natural resources as Kerala does, beautiful ocean and that kind of a greenery. But we'd like to hear from you what kind of changes you would suggest. Yeah. Professor Narayanan, you're on mute. If you can unmute yourself.
Apologies in advance to Delhiites, but Delhi is 4 hours by plane, plus another hour and a half of congested traffic that's in Delhi from Kochi, which of course is near the center of the universe where I live. It is not central to Bharat, unless Nepal, Bhutan, and much of Tibet join Bharat. It is hot, foggy, sweaty, terribly dusty. We won't talk about the human aspects of it at all, because we have some of that in Kerala too. It is too close to hostile borders. It's under 5 minutes for a hypersonic missile. Think about that. I wonder if a more central location would be better. Indore might be an excellent choice. I don't know. It has a reputation for being clean. Somewhere a bit high in the Vindhyas for cool summer weather might be nice. You need an all-season river for water, maybe a nuclear power plant or two nearby, and space for a nice big airport or two.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a nice concept. Something that I would say it's a more dreamlike concept. So we would like to know some more opinions. How about Nivedita again?
Yeah, I think it is a dream, Professor Narayanan. I don't think Delhi as a capital is going to shift anywhere else. It's not going to happen. But I think on a lighter vein, the present administration and government in Delhi has a simple task, because in one way they cannot be worse than the earlier one. So we had 10 years of no administration, no governance at all in Delhi. And then something that Arunji mentioned about these unauthorized colonies. Why do they happen? Very simply put, they happen because there is no attempt at following the master plan and planning out the city. That is plain and simple. We allow these people in the outskirts to chalk out little plots, construct houses, get electric connection, sometimes illegally, get groundwater, and survive. Why is it allowed to be happen? And why doesn't the government say that we will not regularize these? There are already, by the way, 1,100 unauthorized colonies in Delhi, which government says they will regularize some and they will not regularize the other. So I think it's a question of bad planning. That should not happen. That is one. I remember in the 2000s, early 2000s, when I was in the urban development and I worked closely with the administration of Delhi, I found that there was always this, the officers in Delhi never really have a sense of ownership for Delhi. They don't feel that it really belongs to them. Unlike people who are in Kerala or in other state governments, Delhi is not like that. Everyone seems to be very impersonal. I think that should change. Over the last 10 years, as I mentioned, things were really bad. Things that were not there in Delhi, encroachment in green areas, um, uh, having people begging at traffic lights. These were not there in Delhi earlier. They had stopped. But now, last 10 years, they have all come back. So, coming back to some of the priorities, what are these? I think the basic priority should now be to make sure that the infrastructure in Delhi improves, whether it is road, water supply, clean air, all these need to get better. Now, how that is to be done is a different story. Second is uh, there is a lot of need to improve the social infrastructure in Delhi, schools, hospitals, etc., because the pressure on Delhi is very, very high. You won't believe people come for consultations to Safdarjung Hospital and AIMS far away from, sometimes from uh, eastern UP, and they are waiting there on the roadside. Why do we not have proper infrastructure for them to wait, take rest? These are things that need to improve. And finally, the point I want to mention again, which Arunji mentioned, is about these so-called Rohingya colonies. I think uh, a time has come when the government in Delhi has to face and take action. You cannot have people coming and squatting on the riverbank of Yamuna, creating pakka houses, and nobody does anything. That has to stop. And I will stop here.
Very nice points, really very relevant points. Yes, people trying to make pakka houses uh, across the Yamuna River. So let's ask our architect what is her opinion on this.
Thanks, Anjali. I was waiting to speak, so thank you for the opportunity. Narayananji, if you were trying to be provocative, I am sufficiently provoked by what you said. It really breaks my heart to listen to you when you were saying that let's shift the capital out. It's so dirty. It's got a hostile neighborhood. La la la. All that is correct, but are we going to throw the baby out with the bathwater? How is shifting going to help? Are we willing to live with Delhi as an eyesore? The city will still be ours, right? Number one. Number two, the advantage of all that is in place. Why do you want to give up on that? And Nivedita ji, thank you for bringing the reality check on. Look, the capital is not going to shift. Better improve things as they are. So, and Nivedita ji, you talked about bad planning. And as a planner, I just want to remind ourselves planning objectives are central to when we start planning, right? What is the objective of the planning exercise itself? Now, if you are planning just with an administrator's hat, we will end up with things that are, sort of socially blind, or socially agnostic to how people live actually. What are the social interactions that are required for somebody to survive in a city context? That's number one. Number two, again, if we take a systems lens, then we see how different development processes around the country are linked to what happens in Delhi, right? Uh, you were right. In the last 10 years, Delhi has been that shiny object that everyone is attracted to. Therefore, you come, make do with the little, housing facility that you can manage in the city and somehow survive because you want to make money. But this goes back to a very old theory of push and pull. Why are people feeling pulled to Delhi and pushed out of their home states? Because there aren't enough opportunities there. Does that mean there are enough opportunities to have a quality of life in Delhi? Perhaps not. So we have to look at the bigger picture, the macro perspective on how things are across the country. How do they sit with what happens in Delhi? What are the opportunities available in Delhi and outside? And then look at the planning objectives that are required to shape the way the city is developing. So thank you so much, Narayananji, for the provocation, and I was, totally stirred up. Thank you. I'll pause here, Anjali.
Yeah, but thankfully he didn't say capital should be moved to Thiruvananthapuram.
No, that is much worse. From
That
my
is
perspective.
You admit that's preposterous. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. I think Arun is saying something. You're on mute, Arun. If you could unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'd like to add to what Dr. Mona mentioned. Uh, and some of the things that can right away make a difference in the quality of life and the growth of proper Delhi, I think, is uh, we need to have rule of law there. So the rules are already there. They are on the books. They need to be applied on the ground. That is really the calling need of the hour in Delhi. Some areas that can right away make a difference that I feel are, enforce the traffic rules that all the road lanes are open for traffic. You see today, many places you'll see 3 lanes, 4 lanes, but the operative lane is only 1 lane because the other lanes have got some telawala or something holding it. So that is going to make such a big difference, in my view, to the average speed of the traffic, the safety on the road, both for um, the people on vehicle as well as people who are walking, for example. And not to mention that it can potentially relieve the choke at some of the traffic points. The Delhi traffic is almost getting to be as notorious as Bangalore traffic, for example. And no matter how many metros you build, unless we efficiently make use of the roads, uh, it's only going to get worse. And so there is an easy low-hanging fruit, in my view, is really apply the necessary enforcement of law to allow the traffic to be in the natural state. The other parts you would that will make sense is, roll back all these shop or business encroachment into public area. So you go to any of the market, you go any of the busy streets, you see that there is not enough safe pedestrian way for people to walk. There comes a point when the market becomes useless because people don't go there for buying anything because the whole experience is so bad. I went to uh, Sarojini Nagar market and recently in December, in January, and I say I would not want to go there anymore again. So I think it is in the interest of the traders as well as interest of the people to really have a more balanced use of public space in markets or around the streets. Uh, it becomes even more important if, God forbid, there is a COVID or some other form of contagious things come up. We will be a sitting duck yet another time. So that is another area maybe we need to have a better discipline and roll back uh, and apply the necessary force to properly use that space. Other part that I have seen, especially in the non-planned part of Delhi, which is really the majority of people are living there, is there is a there is a lot of water wastage that happens. So, previous government came up with free bijli, free pani, free this, free that. And the bad thing of that was then I see into these colonies and water is being wasted as if it does not cost anything. And the reality is it does not cost anything. So people have to pay even if it is a nominal amount so that the resources are not wasted. But the wasted resource of water I see is always the problematic part, which is a health part coming from water that is in the nali and so on, and the nali getting congested because of, paper wrappings, food things, and so on. So I think the other,
Sorry
yeah,
to interrupt, but I think Nivedita, I saw she raised her hand. I think she has to say something on this topic. Please go ahead if it's okay with you, Arunji. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And along, just as we have the physical infrastructure and the social infrastructure, we also have what is called the emotional infrastructure. And I think Delhi has suffered because nobody takes ownership for Delhi. And we need to reinforce that. We need to bring in some ethics, some etiquette in our children and grown-ups. You see, nobody will queue for a bus, nobody will queue to buy tickets. uh, that seems to be, you can throw the empty wrapper anywhere you want. Isn't that, would we do that at home? We would not. I think we should start from our schools, and I totally agree, Arunji. We should start from our schools, make them understand, and go right up and find people, do whatever is needed to stop this, whether it
So,
is solid waste,
so
whether it is, yeah, go on.
yeah, no, please go ahead, Nivedita. This is what I remember was something very funny. I am also a Delhiite. My school years I have spent in Delhi, and I remember that I also had to travel many a times in the DDC buses, and I made sure that I wore the cheapest possible slippers because I had to run and I had to fight to get into the buses so that even if my slippers were left behind, there was nothing.
Oh my God, that is,
I don't know if that is still the case, but now, of course, I can't, I can't think of running and chasing the DTC buses the way I used to, but I just remember the story. So please go ahead, Nivedita or Arun,
yeah,
whosoever.
I said what I wanted to say. I'm very clear that we need to change the mindset of the people. It'll take time, but it can be done. I don't think it's impossible. And given the fact that all the stars, so to speak, have come, it's the right occasion now. The governments around in NCR states, Delhi has it, the corporation, local corporation has the support. I think now is the right time. Don't you agree, Mona?
Completely, and I was waiting to just sort of echo your words. It is doable, and if this is not the time, then there will not be another time, I feel. I agree with you completely. And I just want to flag some examples for ourselves here. If you look at villages like Punsari in Gujarat, I have seen that village myself, and this was an unannounced visit. People don't lock their doors. There is no need for people to lock their doors because the powers that be have assured people that as long as the village functions as a model village, you keep the village clean, you follow the system that is being set to keep the village as a model village. We take responsibility of your safety and the safety of your belongings, right? So it's a two-way thing. It's not this whole system of othering that unfortunately we have followed in our country, that it's people's responsibility or it's government's responsibility. It's a partnership between people and the administration that will make it work. And there are many examples like this within our country. In fact, our country, again coming from the disaster management space, has given the world this whole perspective on owner driven reconstruction. Put people in charge of reconstruction after disasters and they will do wonders, which has worked in so many other countries based on our experience. So we have the knowledge, we have the experience. Another example I want to give you of Odanturai village, which is just outside Coimbatore in South India. So this Sarpanch, he managed to get a loan from the central bank, I think, to put in place a Pavan Chakki, the windmill, to generate electricity. And there was so much surplus electricity that they were selling it to the grid and making money out of it. And the village was getting free electricity, right? So the cow dung and other things were used to make biogas freely available to people. Ion exchange system for treatment of water to make it potable, right where you are drawing it from the river, that's there and it's available to the people. And what did he do? There was this entertainment park just outside the village. I think the name was Black Thunder. He was charging them a good amount of tax, entertainment tax, to allow people to visit the facility. So the private sector also was roped in as a contributor to the development of the village. That is a village worth seeing. Punsari, I already mentioned. There are several others in Maharashtra also, where the rule of law and people's sense of responsibility, people's ownership have come together to create the miracle that we are looking for in Delhi. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So I like to add another thing about Delhi was, you know, I think no matter all the built up area that is there in Delhi, some things that really needs urgent attention is we need to have gray water plumbing done there. We have to recover water, clean it up enough that it is not for human consumption, but there are such great uses of that water, um, and I think that is going to help uh, help health of the Delhi people, as well as make Delhi more green as well as less dust, in my view. So I have seen some modern water-based collection system that collect dust by the roadside. So we know that it's a very dusty area, and it allows completely removing dust from the side of the roads, and that can tremendously improve the quality of life for all people around that. So that's one part. And the last part that I think we can do much better in Delhi is we need to really have that feeling that this city is really the capital of the whole nation. So there is, I would say that there needs to be an attitude change of the police force there. So as we know, the Indian police force was an instrument of oppression by the British colonial powers. So in India, everybody is afraid to go to police because that is for oppression, not for help. Rest of the world, anywhere you go, police is there. You willingly go to police to get help. That's very different from India. So one of my desire and wish list is some retraining of the Delhi police force to be really the servitor of the country. Is not a Jat land, a Jat Buddhi, you know, Thanedar or constable trying to do that. We need more voices, more languages, and greater refinement, so to say.
Absolutely true. More voices, greater refinement, more people, uh, collective responsibility. But I would like to just get back to Professor Narayan. And do you have any ideas on how Delhi can solve its problem, or maybe able to solve its problem without moving, without moving the capital?
So, yes. Now, I want to start with something. Remember, India banned public smoking by the turn of the millennium, as I recall. Amazing change, almost overnight. I could not believe how fast and how complete it was. That must be studied, how that was done, because miracles like that can be made to happen. Now, getting back to Dr. Mona, I think I want to relate a very short thing, although dangerous. The new FBI director, Kashyap Patel, I don't Americans know that his name is Kashyap, not said that of the 39,000 FBI agents in the United States, 13,000 are concentrated in Washington, D.C., which is the NCR of the United States. And he wondered why that was so. And I'm not going to say what, many Americans said, well, that makes sense because most of the criminals are there, but okay. There can be dispersion today. India advertises e-governance, which is real. Why with e-governance do we need everything to be in Delhi or so much to be in Delhi? Why can't administrative officers be farmed out to the rest of the country? Okay, not the whole capital. I'm not suggesting moving Parliament, for example, but not everybody needs to be right next to Parliament. Why do the business centers need to be next to the Parliament either? I'm not going to comment on what Malayalis would say about the reason for that, but you can imagine it. So it's not necessary. Now, most of what I wanted to say has already been said very nicely by rest of us. Look at the trends. This year, according to Dr. Nivedita, the air quality is better. I did not hear any horror stories about the airport this winter, unlike last year. Radical ideas have been tried and are being tried. One idea is, instead of forcing farmers to take farm waste to processing plants, which is not going to happen because it's very expensive and those plants don't really survive. Bring the processing plants, make them mobile, put them on trucks, and let the farmers rent those for a few days each year, do most of the processing right on the farm, leave the rich residue right there, take the good products, and let a bunch of businesses come up facilitating this. That is one idea. I believe that district collectors in Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana are doing very, very good things. Combination of enforcing the law, but also providing good solutions, okay, at the same time. So I think the one wish I have is that governments, including the NCT, should act fast, not spend decades thinking about things that can be decided in a day. Okay, and they mostly, if you see the activity on those web pages, there will be pictures of people standing with MOUs signing, 15 people lined up smiling. Not even an MOA. You ask, what happened to the project? What happened to the MOU that was signed 10 years ago? That culture needs to change. People need to just get on with it. Have the celebration after the project is successful. So I think that's really what I want to suggest there. There are many, many good ideas, and there are many technical notions of doing things. We are not the only country with dust. Israel has dust. The American West had a huge dust problem, like dust storms coming all over the place. You don't see those anymore. How? So this can be done. And yes, grey water reuse for vertical farming. There's an idea. Okay, you can convert, I think, 75% of the land that is now used for low carbon emitting crops, and you can do those with vertical farms. You save 90% of the water. You're not dependent on the monsoons anymore. You don't have water shortage after that. These things can be done. So let's do it. Thank you.
So, Dr. Mona, being in the disaster recovery space for so long, what do you think of these proposals for change?
I think these are all brilliant ideas. Absolutely brilliant. Many of them have been tested, so we know that they work. Yeah, there are proofs of concept that are available. Having said that, to sustain these great ideas and to scale them, across the city, we require a different kind of a mindset. I think it was Einstein who said that the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. So we really have to shift. We have to change our mindset when we are looking at these situations as problems. And in planning terms, Anjali, we have this concept of wicked problems. So you address the problem at one end, another one raises its ugly head. You address that, a third one crops up. So these are collectively called wicked problems. And theory has it, there's enough evidence also in practice that wicked problems can be solved only with systems thinking. When we look at the whole thing as a system, and we know what are the backward forward linkages, what are the upstream downstream effects of a decision, that's when we start sort of containing the problem and addressing it holistically. So my 2 cents worth of opinion on this is that these are brilliant ideas, but to sustain and to scale them, we need a mindset shift. We need systems thinking to be applied, and we need to think holistically. So there is a planning 2.0 that is really required at this stage, in my view. Thank you.
Systems thinking. Nivedita, what do you think about applying systems thinking to this disaster recovery for our Delhi and Delhiites?
Sorry, disaster
I,
recovery.
I,
Seriously.
It is at the moment, the kind of things that we talked about. We talked about the open water, the draining system, the chronic shortage of water, the crime, the extortion. I mean, I don't know if I cannot call them disasters. I do not know what is the terminology to use. So
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that was
right.
just
You're
that.
right.
Thank you.
You're right, Anjali. In fact, I think Mona did not, or whether I missed it, Mona did not mention the two biggest and tallest landfill sites in the whole world are in Delhi. You see, these are wastes, solid wastes that have gathered over the years and decades and are now piled up there. This should not happen in a world-class capital. So we need to make Delhiites realize that take pride in their city, and it has to start. It won't be overnight. It will take time. At the same time, we should also have methods to enforce, whether it is the rule, the law, the master plan, the planning part, pollution, littering. We have to enforce the law, even encroachment. I think we have to make people understand that it is patriotic to love your city. There's nothing wrong in it. I don't see what is wrong if somebody wants to ensure that my city is clean, my greens are not encroached. They should not be looked down upon. At present, in this culture, quote unquote, the Delhi culture, it is made to be it is made to appear as if you mind your own business, and that's enough. That should change. So, civic sense, solid waste management, ensuring that our water bodies are safe, clean, greens are safe. These are all things that we need to enforce. And being a senior citizen myself, I can say some consideration for the senior citizens. I think that is lacking in Delhi. They push. Um, Arunji mentioned the Sarojini Nagar market. I dare not go there. I have not been there for decades now, and I think it's a place where there is any time any disaster could happen. I think the time has come when this should take place. And two suggestions I have before I end, Anjali. One is that we have technical experts, scientists in this group today in the panel. Why not come up with these ideas and share it with the Delhi government? That's one thing. Second, do make sure that this episode of Rising Bharat is shared with the Delhi government. It is important that they listen to these ideas. Thanks.
sure, Rekha Mishra ji, if you are listening, Rekha Gupta, sorry, Rekha Gupta ji, if you're listening, please, I hope you get some pointers. And I think Arun wanted to say something in the end. Please go ahead, Arun. You're on mute. You're on mute.
My bad. Yeah, so I'd like to just briefly say that we have a big problem of pollution in Delhi. It may be better than last year, but is still very unhygienic. And I think Bharat and Delhi needs to do something very, very concrete about it. The biggest source of pollution that I have seen in my last many visits to Bharat is the dust that is blown up when the vehicles go past it.
You're right.
And so there has to be a way. If only we can have our streets free of dust, then much of the health issue and much of the particulate issues will subside big time. The Kejriwal style way of going with a tanker and spraying some water around to suppress dust is trying to, take care of the effects rather than addressing the root cause. So if we have to spend some money and some effort, there has to be rule of law in terms of construction trucks. When they finish up the work by the roadside, there's no dust left, and every day we have some mechanized way to lift even the tiniest part of dust, which really accumulates by the edges of the road. And if we can just put a little more effort, we can make Delhi much better. I recalled my experience going to Beijing many years ago. And Beijing was such a bad place because of the coal dust that was all over there, worse than Delhi. And they handle it well. And there's no reason why Indians cannot do better. If Beijing can recover from such bad dust problem, coal dust problem, Bharat and Delhi can recover from it too. I went to National Physical Laboratory in Pusa Road, and they showed me around all the instruments and things that really kill people, and without people realizing is the amount of soot that they're inhaling. And going to NPL and looking at the real measurements of these many hours, and this is what we have collected from the green area of Pusa, gives a very jarring wake up call to say we cannot poison our citizens there with hydrocarbon residues. So hydrocarbon residues, which are black soot, which interacts with organic tissue of human beings in long as well as short duration, is really lethal. People don't realize. So if we can only spend a little more effort, be more conscious, and educate our people on dust mitigation and carbon particles, Delhi can be made very easily into a very livable, positive growth city.
Absolutely. I thank my entire panel once again for giving our audience a 360-degree view of how Delhi can truly become the national pride of a soon-to-be superpower Bharat. But in the end, I would conclude with these lines, which my mom used to tell me that दिल्ली तो दिल है हिंदुस्तान का ये तो तीरथ है सारे जहान का. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and we'll be back soon with episode 12. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Jai Sri Ram.
Jai Sri Ram.